What is going on, YouTube? I'm your host, Colin Alcaves, today, joined by my co-host, Will Cohen. And today we're going to be talking about the massive trade the Rangers just had with the Carolina Hurricanes on the first day of free agency. But before we get into it, if you like the content that you're seeing here, we're posting regularly on Instagram, X, and I believe we have a TikTok as well. So make sure to check us out on those platforms. But before we really start diving into it, Will, how are you doing today?
It's really weird that me and you are doing the podcast by ourselves today. And honestly, that makeshift intro was great. I really enjoyed that. I was trying to hold back my laughter. I'm sorry if you couldn't tell, but that was great. That was really great.
I appreciate it. I'm flying on the edge of my seat here, seeing how it goes. So we're trying something new here. Eric's out with Tony golfing for Tony's birthday. So everybody drop a happy birthday to Tony down in the comment section below. But yeah, no, I mean, we have a lot of news to cover, obviously, today. This trade was massive. I think it was huge for the Rangers. I think they took a step in the right direction. A lot of the Drury haters have kind of flipped the page. I know you're one of them. You've walked it back a little bit. I know we're still not totally on the trusting of Drury, but I think this is a step in the right direction. So you want to dive into that trade for us real quick?
So on July 1st, the first day of free agency, the New York Rangers traded, or I guess it's a sign and trade, Keandre Miller to the Carolina Hurricanes, who then they signed Keandre Miller to an $8 by $7.5 million contract. The Rangers received a 2026 first round pick. The Carolina Hurricanes have two, so the condition is the pick is the better one. Whichever pick turns out better between the Hurricanes' own and the Dallas Stars. It is also top 10 protected. Pretty sure the Stars is just top 10 protected. And a 2026 second-round pick, and then defenseman Scott Morrow, who is 22 years old.
It's quite the return for a player that we were known to not want and we're looking to get rid of for a little bit of time. A lot better of a return than I thought we were going to get. And, of course, that 2026 first-round pick, even though it might be a late pick, is as good as gold in what's considered one of the deepest drafts in recent memory. So, I mean, I'm very happy that I would have been happy with the first and the second personally, but to then throw in a guy like Scott Morrow, who I know you have a couple notes here that I'll let you go over, but I love the pick. I know Johnny Lazarus was quoted as saying that he is the Jack Eichel of the blue line, really shifty skater, puck-moving defenseman, offensive mind. He's really, really good at that. He has a little bit of work to do on the defensive end from what it looks like. And I know Hurricanes fans were complaining a lot about him after putting him in against the Panthers and being surprised that he was struggling as a 22-year-old against one of the best teams in the last 3 years. I mean, they went to the Cup final every time. So, how do you really judge him based on that? But he'll definitely have a little bit more of a sample size with us, and we'll see what he can do. And hopefully he can develop into an everyday NHLer for us.
Yeah, I mean, I personally did not think the Rangers were going to get a player back for this in this trade. I thought it was going to be a first, a second, and maybe another late round pick. And to be honest with you, I was pleasantly shocked when I found out it was Scott Morrow. I saw a lot of Rangers fans really like that pickup. A lot of I saw his analytics, and I know analytics aren't the end all be all, but I mean, he's a true offensive defenseman, puck mover, which the Rangers obviously need because right now on their roster they have one, and that's Adam Fox, and that will not cut it. Obviously, I mean, he's 22 years old. He's a pretty big kid. I mean, he's 6'2", 194 pounds, and to be able to move the way he can as being 6'2" and almost 200 pounds it's pretty crazy. And being a puck mover, I mean, this is something we talked about for all of last year was the Rangers need to be able to find another defenseman who can actually spring the rush into the offensive zone. And they just found one in Scott Morrow, who's 22 years old, as I already said. So, I mean, I thought it was a really good pickup. I was hoping it was going to be Nikishin, but I think that was a little too big of an ask. They probably wouldn't have gotten a first round pick if that was the case. Probably not a second either, but I'm really happy with Scott Morrow. I know that he was on a lot of websites, had him as a top 15 defensive prospect, maybe even as high as top 5 defensive prospect. So for the Rangers to be able to get that back, and especially a first and a second round pick, I would say that's a much better return than I thought they were going to get.
100%. I remember when I saw the trade, I was initially a little scared because trading in division can always be, off-putting. And especially with a team as good as the Hurricanes have been, we've seen them in the playoffs a couple times now. So they're an all too familiar foe. Luckily, we haven't had too much trouble with them, and we've been able to sneak past. But giving a young 25-year-old defenseman, I know he didn't really pan out with us. He had a lot of offensive upside, but he kind of was not a very physical player towards the end. It looked like he was scared to touch the opponents at all, let alone body them out of the front of the net. So a little too passive for my liking, but the Hurricanes are a very analytical team. They tend to take defensemen and develop them very well. So when they come asking for a player in division, you got to be a little concerned about what they might be able to do with him under Rob Brindamore, who's another, top head coach in the league. It's a little concerning, but the return, I think, definitely warrants that risk. Being able to, like I said, get a first in this next draft, which is huge. Even a second in a loaded draft, you have 2 chances now to hit on those picks. It's massive. And then you get Scott Morrow, who I really like. I know you had mentioned Nikishin. There was names being thrown out like Nato, I think is how you say it, or Nado, I don't know. Not exactly the pronunciation of that one, but I'm sounding it out to the best of my ability. But I was definitely happy to land a guy like Scott Morrow. I didn't know he was so big. 6'2", that's a big boy. And I saw clips of him skating. He really doesn't look like he should be able to move as fast as he does. So, definitely a player to keep an eye out for. Do you think he'll start in the league next season? Do you think they'll let him develop a little bit? Or at 22 years old, it will be a bit of a jump, but our defense is lackluster to say the least.
I can't lie. I mean, I just drove 8 hours from Long Island back home, and I was very bored. I mean, I was stuck in traffic almost the entire ride, and for about an hour, I was talking to myself about this. I probably could have made it into an entire podcast episode. I can't lie. I honestly think there is a good chance I think he could start on opening night, or maybe not even, be on the roster opening night. I think when you look at our defensive core, and you're really looking at, I know this is the power play, but when you're looking at who's going to QB both power plays, Adam Fox is obviously the first power play QB. Like, yeah, that's, obviously set in stone. But after that, like, Gavrikov obviously is not going to touch the power play. Braden Schneider, probably not. Borgen, probably not. Vakanainen, no. Susie, no. Like, when you really think about it, the best chance we have is Scott Morrow. So I feel like they should give him a little bit of run at the beginning of the season. And if, he's struggling and they don't really like what they see at this point in time, maybe you send him down to Harvard, or, I wouldn't just stick him up in the press box, but I think he should get a little bit of an extended run at the beginning of the season. I mean, he's 22 years old. The Rangers don't have another offensive defenseman on the blue line right now. I mean, does it hurt to put him there with Carson Soucy on that third pairing? I don't think so. I mean, you gotta see what you have in him. So, but I guess it really goes, once training camp starts, they'll see. But that might have been where I should have started. But yeah, I personally think that he will probably be on the roster, whether it's a scratch or whether it's in the opening night lineup.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, from what I've read, it seems like he's succeeded at every level of hockey that he's played at so far. I know you have some stats over here on the right. I don't know if you threw those out yet. For his UMass stats or no, his Chicago Wolves stats.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, 13 goals, 26 assists for 39 points in 52 games. Not too shabby for a defenseman. My only concern would be, are you going to play him on that third pair? You mentioned with Soucy, because then if that's the case, I know a lot of Rangers fans, myself included, weren't the biggest fan of Soucy last year.
Yeah.
I'm under the belief that he could turn it around. I think with the right regime, I think Sullivan coming in can actually help his game a lot, and having a solid set defensive structure. It's difficult when you jump teams mid-year and you go from, one structure to another, and it was clear that we didn't really have one when he got here, because everybody was lost. Even our best players looked bad under the system they were running. So I don't think that it was any benefit to him, and I do think that having Sullivan here and the coaches that he brought in will help with that. But do you want to put a guy who last year we considered a liability with a 22-year-old who was known for his offense but not so much his defense yet? And could that hurt his production, or are you just saying give him the run and let's see what happens?
I kind of feel like let's just see what you have in him at this point. Like, I mean, I guess that's what training camp is for. You're really going to see not really, I guess maybe preseason, but at the same time, it's like 22 years old. Obviously, he did well with the Chicago Wolves and did, 14 games with the Carolina Hurricanes, had a goal and 5 assists in 6 games. 6 points in 14 games. So, that's not too shabby, especially for, he's probably, 20, I was probably 22, 21 at that point.
I believe
probably.
he's 20, he was 22, I believe.
Yeah, so 22 years old. That's not bad at all. Obviously he's 22 years old, and like you said, do you really want to throw him into the fire with Carson Soucy, knowing how he played last year? Like, maybe not, because obviously, Morrow is doesn't really excel in his own zone, and Soucy last year kind of struggled in his own zone as well, and that's not something you want to pair with a 22-year-old. So, still, I would maybe give him like a couple games up in the NHL just to see what you have in him at the beginning of the year. Or, if they just want to play it safe, you send him down to Hartford, let him get some time down there, let him develop his game a little bit, and then call him up in the middle of the season or something like that, and then really run with him. But at this point, I think when you're looking at this D-core, I feel like he can slot in that third pairing on the right side. So I would give him a little bit of a run.
Fair enough. And I have one more thing before we wrap it up here. I want to pose this to you because I was thinking about it as you were talking. I know they had talked about flipping Schneider over to the left side, right? He was right. Now he's going to the left.
Yes.
Would you consider moving Soucy out to play with his old line mate Borgen? They played together over in Seattle, and putting Schneider, who's known for his defense, he's a little bit more stay-at-home, and put him with Morrow. Now you have the chance to reunite some old chemistry in the two Kraken players who played well with the Kraken, I believe. And then you have the potential to build a new line that could maybe usurp Borgen and Soucy and become that second pairing down the line. They kind of are around similar ages. They're definitely closer than Borgen and Schneider, from what I believe. But you get a little two younger guys who can build that chemistry and kind of start something fresh, as opposed to trying to figure out what their older NHL vet partner has been doing in their time in the league. So I don't know if you would do a run at that, or what would you do in that scenario? Is that something you'd be interested in?
See, the only thing is I feel like Carson Soucy you're gonna want to kind of give him sheltered minutes from what we saw last year, and I know that anything could happen this year. Carson Soucy could become, under David Quinn's, oh crap, I'm blanking on the word now, of his structure, of David Quinn's structure, he could become a pretty good, or maybe a slightly above average, maybe slightly below average defensive guy. But I feel like if you want to go with your best foot forward, you're going to want to shelter. You're going to want to have to put Soucy on your third pair, shelter his minutes so he's not playing against those, too strong of lines, and put Schneider up in the up on the second pair. I could maybe see it happening, but at this point I want to see what we have in Schneider and see what he can do with, more minutes. So for right now, I would say no, but maybe if it doesn't work out, then you say, all right, let's try Soucy out there and see what happens. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, Schneider goes back up.
Fair enough. Well, that just about does it for this video. If you like what you heard, drop a like down below. If you have any different thoughts or any other things that you think that they should do, let us know in the comment section down below. We do read all of them. And I know Eric loves to respond to them. I also do get on the responses from time to time. So let us know your thoughts down below. Like I said earlier, make sure you follow us on all our other platforms. We are posting regularly on the Instagram and the Twitter, I believe, or the X. But yeah, that just about wraps it up. So have a good one. And as always, let's go Rangers.
Perfect.